Welcome to Small Arms Solutions. Today we're looking at the HK45. Now, many of you know that HK is probably known for some of the most expensive firearms in the industry. They've had some incredible innovations such as the Mark 23, the USP series. We're going to talk about today is the HK45. To talk about the HK45, we got to go back in history a little bit, and then we got to introduce a couple people. But first off, if we look at SOCOM, first firearm that was ever developed for SOCOM was the Mark 23 SOCOM. This was a special handgun that was designed specifically for the use of SOCOM as the offensive handgun weapon system. As we see, it's a rather large pistol. We refer to it as the crew serve pistol. The OHWS is a three-part handgun system. You have the firearm itself, you have a laser aiming module, and you also have a sound suppressor. It was designed as an offensive weapon, not as a sidearm, which is, again, why you don't see this as being small, why this is large. This was designed as a primary weapon. This is probably the most tested handgun on the face of the earth. There was a significant amount of testing that went on. At the same time this was going on, also was the development of the HK USP. In fact, the HK45 USP is the one that really comes to mind, but the HK Mark 23 and the HK USP 40 were designed around the same time. The Mark 23 took USP technology, which we're going to get into. But the Mark 23 did everything that it was supposed to do, and then some. It never achieved any success because of the fact that this pistol was so large. The people who were using it, the operators, they were not used to something this large. They were accustomed to having a smaller 9mm P226 or M9, where they were able to carry 15 shots and get off light, low recoil, multiple hits. This was just too big for what they were used to. So unfortunately, as good as this pistol was, it just sat in the armory. I think what we're going to do now is we're going to talk a little bit about the evolution from the HK Mark 23 USP to the HK45. Shown here is the HK USP 45 Tactical. This is a USP that has been chambered in 45. The first USPs that came out were the USP 40. That was around, I would say 94, 95. Then after that came out the 9mm. And then it was probably a year or so after that where the HK45 finally made its appearance. Even though the Mark 23 was made, probably 3 years prior to the release of the USP 45. We're going to go over some of the features of the USP 45. Now, what we have here is the USP 45 Tactical. Now, the difference between the standard USP 45 and the Tactical are we have a fronted barrel, we have high front and rear sights set up for sound suppressors, we have an adjustable trigger travel. And those are the things that really separate the USP 45 from the USP Tactical. But the USP Tactical, for all intents and purposes, and a miniaturized Mark 23, has many of the same features. First of all, we'll look at the frame. We have a polymer frame. We have an oversized trigger guard for use with gloved hands. We have an ambidextrous magazine release. We have a 12-shot magazine. The Mark 23 also had a 12-shot magazine. As we pull rearward, we will see a rubber O-ring around the barrel. This is another feature that the Mark 23 has. What this does is when the barrel and slide close, it centers the barrel and ensures that the barrel locks up at the same place every time. It is removable and it is replaceable. I have yet to wear one out, so for as far as the overall length of the life of this part, I'm not quite sure because I'm still using the same ones. We do have a polygon type barrel rather than the standard cut barrel. Now, looking at the safety, like the other USP variants, we have multiple configurations we can have. What we have here is a variant 1, which when the safety is engaged, trigger cannot be pulled, drop down. We have double action down pistol fire and single action. Then we have the ability to decock. We also have the ability to carry cocked and locked. This is referred to as variant 1. Variant 2 is the exact same thing, but on the right side instead for a left-handed shooter. Then we have the variants 3 and 4, which is a decock only. And then we have additional variants which have manual safety cocked and locked on both sides. Then we have the LEM, which is a different variation that we don't see very much in the commercial guns. We see more in law enforcement variations. We have a solid piece of steel machine slide. We have a hostile environment finish that's on here. We have a pretty good grip on the slide release, slide stop area there. And we have adjustable sights in the rear, fully adjustable. If this pistol was fired, we do have a live cartridge indicator as well. If so, the extractor would stick out and you would see the red. You'd be able to feel that with your hands or see it with your eyes. Now, getting in the inside is where it gets really, really interesting. And probably one of my more favorite features of this pistol. Is HK's patented recoil reduction mechanism. What this in effect does is it decreases recoil by about 30% over any other gun in its category by having two recoil springs. You have the larger outer and you have a small inner one. And what we can see, when the pistol will fire, the slide will come back and then it'll strike this part right here. And then what will happen is it'll compress the second spring. And that will take the energy off of the pistol, making the overall pistol last longer, and also have the ability to fire a lot of high power, high pressure ammunition. This is one of the neatest features, and this feature did come from the Mark 23, because the Mark 23 had to be able to fire the plus P 185 grain jacketed hollow points, which are extremely high pressure compared to 230 grain ball. As we see, we have a polymer frame, we have pedaling, we have checkering on the back. Now, there are some complaints about the checkering, basically saying that it's too sharp. A lot of people will take a file to it down. I don't particularly have that issue with it. I like having a sharper profile on there because when your hands are sweaty, they're muddy, they're wet, the pistol is not going to slide out of your hand. Moving the barrel. Again, we get a closer look at that rubber O-ring. Now, looking at the slide, we have, most importantly, we have a passive firing pin block, which prevents this pistol from firing if it's ever dropped. So what we have here is a match-grade version of the USP 45. And I definitely have to say that recoil reduction mechanism does work. In fact, a lot of times with higher pressure ammunition, you can feel it working. You can feel that energy being taken up. I'm going to put this together here. So the USP would become the starting point for the HK45. However, the HK45 truly begins with the M1911. Now, this is where this comes from. Many of you are aware of who Larry Vickers is, and also who Ken Hackathorn. Larry Vickers is very well known for his own channels. He is a former Delta operator, and probably one of the most notable 45 1911 pistol smiths in the industry. And also Ken Hackathorn, who is also a writer. He's a trainer, and he's also probably one of the really, really big 1911 guy. The two of them went to approach H&K about manufacturing a HK M1911. Well, at the time they went to HK with it, HK was pretty busy with some other military projects, so it sort of was put on hold. So then by the time HK got back around to it, again, both Ken and Larry were on H&K to get this going. HK decided that there was already too many 1911s on the market. You already had big major companies such as SIG manufacturing them. Oh, well, hell, not just SIG. You had SIG, you had Remington, you had just pretty much any company and their brother is now making 1911s. So although the thought of HK making their own 1911 was pretty much done, they decided what they were going to do was to take the best of several pistols. They were going to have the USP 45 as a starting point, and then they were going to have some of the grip properties of the P30, as well as some of the features of the 1911. And what the end result was HK45. So what we have here is, if you look at the grip style itself, you have removable back straps and side plates to give you a larger or smaller grip. The grip angle on here is pretty much identical to that of the M1911. As well as the grip was made thinner versus the 45 HK USP to make it more comfortable, more easier to grasp. We also know we have a magazine release very similar to that of the USP also, which is activated from both sides. But we do have only a 10-shot magazine, which was probably one of the biggest disappointments for me on this pistol, was decreasing back down from a 12-round magazine capacity to a 10. So that was probably the one thing that was disappointing in this pistol. Now, if you look at the 1913 rail, we have a 1913 rail instead of the HK Universal rail on the bottom, so you can attach any kind of a flashlight, laser aiming module, or whatnot. Now, this particular model here is a tactical, so you do have a threaded barrel. When we look over at the safety, we have the exact safety from the USP system. This is also a variant 1, which can be gotten in one of 9 different variants. The rear sights are, instead of having a tactical sight or a regular night sight, they had the luminous paint where all you would do is strike them with a high LED type light, and you would have illuminated paint for, I'd probably say a good 15 minutes, 10-15 minutes, you would have visible sights. If you look at the slide and compare the two, you'll definitely see that the HK45 has a little more narrow of a slide. Length are about the same. To take a look at the grips, you definitely would see that the HK USP45 is slightly larger, but you have a lot more contour to the USP45. You have a polygon barrel just like the USP45 for use with higher pressure ammunition. Of course, you don't want to fire lead through it. And something else that's very unique about this pistol compared to the USP is you have an ambidextrous slide release on both sides versus the just one on the USP45. Now again, depending on how you are trained, you would insert your loaded magazine, slingshot it back, or you'd have the ability to use the slide release on either side. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at the inside of this pistol. The HK45 disassemble is very similar to that of the USP. You pull the slide back to the notch over the slide stop, push in from the right side. As you can see, the right side slide stop stays in place. Now the recoil reduction system on this is quite different from that of the USP. Instead of having the dual springs, you have a polymer plug right here, where it would work very much similar. Quite frankly, this is one of the places I do prefer the HK USP over this. I do think the recoil reduction system on the USP45 is a little bit nicer than this one, definitely more durable. But instead of using the coil springs like you do on the USP45, you use a flat recoil spring similar to that of a Glock, which is a more durable recoil spring. As we see here, we also have the rubber O-ring to make sure that the slide locks up the same way every time to increase accuracy. And then looking on the inside, we do have the firing pin safety, which again I view as being the most important of all safeties. You also have the live cartridge indicator on the extractor by the extractor pushing out, or you have a visible red, and you can also feel it if it's loaded. The HK45 was pretty much developed in a 2-year development process, which is like typical HK, was shrouded in secrecy. And I also wanted to thank Dave Fortier for helping me out with some of the technical information on the history that comes from this. He had a chance to interview Larry Vickers and Ken Hackathorn when this pistol first came out. HK was certainly very, very fortunate to have two men of such high standards to be working with them on a project. Now, Ken Hackathorn had told Dave Fortier that he thought this was the new 1911 of the new century. I'm not sure what the exact words were, but basically it was going to be the new 1911. That was certainly a bold statement on Ken's part. Unfortunately, I don't think it really achieved it. And I think primarily it has to do with cost. HK's cost for the USP, the MSRP is $1,135, so it's extremely expensive. The overall stats in this pistol, it's got a 5-inch barrel on it, and it's a overall length of 5.91 inches, width of 1.54 inches, barrel length of 5.2 inches, and a sight radius of about 6.63 inches. This is designed as a duty-style pistol. There's another part of the evolution in this pistol, which is called the HK45C, which I do not have here, unfortunately. That's why I really wanted, but HK didn't have one at the time. It's a loaner. The HK45 Compact is a smaller version of this, holds, I believe, 8 rounds. And this one was adopted as the MK24 Mod O, which means it was fully adopted by SOCOM, just like the Mark 23 was for use by them. And the HK45 has seen quite a bit of use special operations. So looking at this, I'll tell you what I like and what I don't like. The biggest problem that I have with this pistol is the same thing that has to do with the P30, is if you're able to see this area in here, you have sort of a valley that's cut into the polymer where the trigger slides in this little track in here. And I found that pinched my finger quite a bit, and it was rather uncomfortable. Now, overall, if I'll do a comparison between the USP45 Tactical and this one, I'll give you my thoughts on that as well. Don't usually give too much of my opinions in here, just basically facts, but I will talk about what my thoughts are on this one. Overall, I have to say I'm more of a USP45 tactical fan. I tend to like this grip the way that it is. It fits my hand. I have very large hands. I do like the fact that I got a 12-round magazine. For as far as the trigger is concerned, I don't have this valley underneath here that's going to cause my trigger finger any problems. Now, I do prefer the fact this has a 1913 rail instead of a proprietary universal rail on it. I do definitely have to give that to this model here. The overall width between the two, although the P30 is definitely slimmer, it tends not to bother me too much because of the fact that this is a duty-style pistol. It's not like I'm trying to hide it and conceal it. So the overall width didn't make much of a difference to me. But as far as the trigger is concerned, the triggers on the USP45 Tactical has the adjustable travel on the rear. I do prefer the new magazine release on the HK45 over the USP because it certainly is larger. The trigger mechanisms, it's the exact same. There's no difference between them. The lever is a little bit more slender on the HK45. Again, the grip, I think the people at large would prefer this one because you have all this ability to adjust with the adjustable back strap on this. This one does not have the adjustable side panels such as the P30 does. Now, when it came to firing them for a recoil, I definitely believe that the USP45 with the recoil reduction mechanism has a different feel to it, a little less oomph. For as far as the grip angle is concerned, it does have the 1911 grip angle, which it is nice. I don't notice it as much because I'm not really a 1911 person. I don't really shoot 1911, so if you grip the two pistols together, you'll definitely see that there is a similarity between the two of them. But overall, both are excellent pistols. There's certainly the same price points between the two of them. The HK45 has gone through a good number of testing. In fact, it was designed to have a 20,000 round service life. Also put on the internet was a test that was done of over 70,000 rounds. In fact, they brought Larry Vickers in to fire the last magazine, and the pistol had ran perfectly in 70,000 rounds, which is what I would expect out of a USP45, definitely out of a Mark 23, because a Mark 23 is probably the most tested handgun that I know of, for as far as the durability testing has been done with it. There's certainly been a lot of work that's been done with it. It's unfortunate that the price tag is what it is, because I do believe the pistol probably would have had a lot more of a chance at, I wouldn't say being the next 1911, but it would have had a chance at a lot more sales, a lot more law enforcement sales as well. You consider what's going on right now with law enforcement, with a lot of people using 45. This pistol would be ideal, and this HK pistol only comes in 45 caliber. It was designed as only a 45 caliber. This could have had a lot of promise in law enforcement, if not for the price. But of course, now the pendulum's swinging back, and we're going back to 9mm. I think what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the range, and we're going to put a few rounds to the HK45. What we're going to do now is we're going to put the silencer coat suppressor on the HK45 Tactical. This magazine is Black Hills 230 grain full metal jacket. The ammunition that we're trying here is it's a new one by Federal this year. They've had a 9mm version of this Syntech ammunition for a couple of years now. This is the new 45. It's a total synthetic jacket, which basically eliminates lead copper fouling, and also has a lead bullet core. And it reduces splashback on steel targets. As you can see, the red coating on it. Now, we had an opportunity to fire a few different kinds of ammunition as well, and one was the new Federal Syntech ammunition, which I found very, very interesting. It's a synthetic projectile. This pistol had no malfunctions. We put just around 500 rounds through it. Most of it was suppressed with a silencer Go Osprey suppressor. And like you would expect, you would have no malfunctions whatsoever. Accuracy was fully that which you would expect of a pistol like this. Now, like was mentioned in the article that Dave Fortier wrote, as gun writers, everybody's always concerned with the group size of a pistol, how tightly it groups. And I tend to agree with what Larry Vickers says. This is a combat pistol. This is not designed to put one bullet through the same hole. It's designed to use on a silhouette type target and to put holes in bad guys to make them bleed out. It's not designed as a match grade pistol. So for as far as this is concerned, this is an ideal combat pistol. It does easy 25 yards without question. I do expect to see this to remain in HK's catalog for quite some time because it is a very successful pistol. It just hasn't had the acceptance that it should. Being used by the U.S. SOCOM as the Mark 23 for the 45 compact is excellent. It does give the SOCOM guys a very compact pistol with a lot of firepower behind it, with a 45 caliber cartridge. So if you guys have any questions, please leave me a comment. We'll see if I can get back to you. If you enjoyed this video, please click like, please subscribe, even better share, and please consider donating on our Patreon. Thank you very much.